Hey guys, Daniel Sapp here, tech editor at Pinkbike. We're right down the road from my house in Pisgah Forest, North Carolina. Most serious mountain bikers will tell you not to buy a bike from Walmart. All of that may have changed last year when they launched the high-end brand Viathon. Available through Walmart.com, they've emerged as a new contender in the direct-to-consumer business model. Walmart's connection with mountain bikes does have a personal connection. Tom and Stuart Walton are both avid mountain bikers, and they've invested heavily in the infrastructure surrounding Bentonville, Arkansas, which is Walmart's world headquarters. So is Walmart about to disrupt the bike industry? Their massive supply chain, purchasing power, and reach are things that few other companies, much less bike brands, can rival. But for them to make an impact, their bikes need to rival the top players on the trail and not just at the cash register. To find out, we're pitting Viathon's top-of-the-line M1 cross-country bike against the latest specialized Epic hardtail. The Epic's widely considered the benchmark for high-end cross-country race bikes. There are a few differences between the bikes, but both models have SRAM's wireless Eagle Axis drivetrain, a RockShox SID Ultimate fork, and fancy carbon wheels. At first glance, the geometry numbers of both bikes are very similar on paper. The M1 was designed and engineered by Kevin Kwan. He's worked for a number of different brands in the last decade, including Cervelo, BH, and Diamondback. Now, Viathon says they weren't just targeting racers with the M1, even though the numbers are pretty similar to a lot of the carbon race bikes that we see nowadays. The one big difference with the geometry numbers is that the Viathon has a steeper head tube angle by a degree at 69.5 versus the Epic's 68.5. And the Viathon has a 120mm fork versus the Epic's 100mm fork. A lot of the other numbers between the two bikes, including the wheelbases, are pretty similar to each other. But the Epic does have a slightly longer reach, a slightly steeper seat tube angle, and it has that slacker head tube. When you're looking at it on paper, this bike has everything you expect from a World Cup level race bike. So both frames feature a threaded bottom bracket, internal cable routing, and more than one water bottle mount, which is standard for any cross-country race bike, especially a hardtail. The Epic weighs an astonishingly light 790 grams, where the Viathon weighs 1,035 grams, totally within the realm of acceptable for a production bike, but that's about a half a pound heavier than the Epic. So Specialized is able to achieve this super lightweight frame by utilizing their huge R&D team and a near infinite R&D budget to come up with some interesting ways to design the carbon fiber to make the frame super lightweight. Meanwhile, Viathon uses a more standard mix of Toray fibers. It's the same stuff that you see in most high-end cross-country bikes, but the difference in weight between the two frames is pretty astounding. There are a few other differences between these two bikes as completes. The Viathon here has the RockShox Reverb Axis wireless dropper post, and then the Epic has a Quark power meter on it. So if you buy the Epic, you're going to be buying it from a Specialized dealer. It's the only place you can get these bikes. It'll be built up by a mechanic who has likely been to Specialized or is certified, and it's going to be set up exactly for you. That's considering that they have your size in stock. Worst case, they have to order it. But pedals will be on, tires will be set up tubeless, everything will be tuned up, ready to go. All you have to do is swipe your credit card and you're off to the trails. If there's ever a warranty issue or any other problem, or if your bike even just needs tuning up, the shop should have your back. All right, with Viathon, you press purchase online from the comfort of your own home. The bike is then built up by a PBMA mechanic at Viathon. They slightly disassemble the bike, put it in a box, and then they'll ship it to you at home or your local Walmart, if that's the option you choose. It includes all the tools that you need to reassemble the bike. You've got a Torx key, a torque wrench that has interchangeable bits, pretty fancy, along with a set of Allen keys. The Viathon's super simple to set up. You just follow the provided instructions. You put the front wheel on, attach the handlebar to the stem using the provided torque wrench to make sure that it's the correct torque. You attach the seat post, also use the torque wrench there. Put the batteries on the axis and you stick the pedals on, air up the tires to your desired pressure, and air up the suspension. One thing with the axis, the batteries weren't totally charged, and so I got out to the trails and one of the batteries was dead, which left me back at my house playing fetch with the dog while that thing charged up and it started storming. So lost the day of riding there. That's unfortunate. Another thing with the Viathon is that the tires don't come set up tubeless, or they didn't in my experience at least. You'll have to go on, and while the rims are tubeless ready, you're gonna need to put in the valve cores and air everything up. Maybe it'll work for you on the first try with a floor pump. Maybe you need a compressor, which is gonna lead you going to a bike shop if you don't have one. So while the aggressive geometry of the Epic and the half a pound weight difference is pretty amazing, the price between the two bikes is astounding. The Epic here sells for $9,500, where the Viathon sells for $6,500. That's a $3,000 difference. Even crazier is that Viathon sells a GX Eagle equipped version of the M1 for $1,900. Other brands, including Specialized, for a comparable bike, you're looking at almost twice that much. If you want to buy the Viathon as a frame only, it's going to cost you $1,000, whereas the Epic is $2,500. The price verdict? Viathon wins by a mile. There's a huge difference in the price of these two bikes, and so we're going to give the Viathon a point and maybe even a little bit more just for that. If you're keeping score, which we are, the Epic is going to take a win in the geometry department. It's just a better race-ready geometry. It's more progressive, it's more modern. It's everything you want in a race bike. Also, the Epic takes a huge win in the weight category. A half a pound difference for the frame, that's a big deal. As far as convenience goes, it's a toss-up. Each bike has their own advantages for an individual person. Someone may like going into a bike shop more and dealing with someone face-to-face. Another person may want to order something online and not ever have to step foot in a store. So we're gonna give them each a point there. Price-wise, the Viathon wins by a landslide. It's a $3,000 difference, which is huge. So 2 points to the Viathon for that, because $3,000 is a third of the price of the Epic. Right now, the Epic and the M1 are tied up, but as we said when we started this, it all comes down to how they perform on the trail. So when it comes to how these two bikes ride, which is the most important thing, they both ride really, really well. It's obvious that they are both high-end mountain bikes and you could race on either one of them, but there are a few things that make them stand out from each other respectively. The Viathon here has a dropper post. That's huge. I think almost any bike should have a dropper post these days, even cross-country bikes, especially as technical as courses are getting. With that dropper post comes a weight penalty, but it's a weight penalty that I'm willing to accept. The Epic's geometry is more modern, it's more aggressive, it's more progressive. It is a more comfortable bike to ride overall than the Viathon, save the dropper post. With Specialized being able to control the design and engineering of almost everything on this bike, it makes for a really nice complete package. Okay, so both bikes have a RockShox SID Ultimate fork. The Viathon's is 120 millimeters, the Epic is 100 millimeters, and the Viathon has a 51 millimeter offset, the Epic has 44. The big difference on the Epic is that it has the Specialized brain cartridge in it. The brain is an inertia valve, which you can flip on and it kind of locks the fork out until you hit a big bump, and then it opens it up and it works like normal. It's something that a lot of racers really like and a lot of other people really don't like. So that's definitely something to consider, that although it's a super high-end product, it's not for everyone. While the 120 millimeter longer travel fork on the Viathon is nice to have up front, the bike also has a degree steeper head tube angle, which is not as nice. When it comes to ride quality overall, the Epic is a really well tied together package. And that's not to say the Viathon isn't, but the Epic just takes it to that next level. There is no doubt that it is a premium top of the line product. The frame has a bit more compliance built in than the Viathon, and it offers a smoother ride, even with the shorter travel fork. If I was going to choose one bike to spend all day on, I would choose the Epic. And I'm saying that having spent all day on it racing a good chunk of the Leadville 100 last year before I decided that was just a horrible experience, and why would anyone ever pay to do that? So the Epic, in all respects, is quicker and snappier. It is easier to get up to speed. It accelerates more quickly than the Viathon. The Viathon still gets up there nearly as fast, but the Epic has just that little bit less weight, which makes a big difference when you're going uphill. Descending, the Viathon has the dropper post. The dropper post makes a huge difference in getting the seat out of the way and helping you navigate technical sections of trail without causing you to crash or just slow down. You can just go full throttle into stuff. It also has the 120mm fork, but that also brings us back down to the geometry, which the Epic's geometry is better. And now let's tally everything up, but we've got to add performance first. And overall, the Epic all-arounder, great performance, so it's gonna get a point, but the spec of the Viathon with the dropper post on it, that's at least worth half a point. So we're gonna give it a little 0.5. To tally up the scores, the Specialized Epic comes in at 4, and the Viathon M1 comes in at 3.5. Both of these bikes are top of the line, top tier, high performance packages. I was a little faster on the trail with the Epic, and I think a lot of people would be. It has a better geometry, it has a little bit better spec, and it's just a better overall complete package. It is one of the fastest bikes, if not the fastest bike in the world when you look at it on paper. The Viathon though, it holds its own. And for $6,500, which is $3,000 less than the Epic, it's a heck of a package. If I had the choice to spend that $3,000 on a bike or save it for a vacation, coaching, or some sort of home improvement project, I'm probably going to save it. But at the end of the day, these are both super high performance bikes, and while the performance aspects of the Epic are better, the Viathon's value is far and away the best. Thanks for watching. That was the Specialized Epic versus the Viathon M1. Which one would you choose? Let us know in the comments below, and thanks for watching.